You're locked into Faith Under the Lights, the podcast where we spotlight athletes who are unashamed of the gospel and living boldly for Christ. I'm your host, Nolan Valenti, and together we will dive into powerful testimonies and stories of faith, courage, and perseverance. If you're ready to be inspired and challenged in your own walk with Christ, then you're in the right place. Make sure to like, follow, and share this podcast so others can hear these incredible stories of faith in action. Faith Under the Lights. Let's get started. Hey, welcome to Faith Under the Lights, a podcast that is spotlighting Christian athletes who are living out Romans 1:16, unashamed of the gospel, just unashamed of being a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm excited about what God will do through this podcast, and I really can't wait to get started. So here's a little bit about me. Just want to introduce myself and kind of tell you how this podcast came about. So my name is Nolan Valenti. I am from French Settlement, Louisiana, which is right outside of Baton Rouge. And I'm 43 years old. I'm married to my wife, Christine. Together we have 6 children. And so when we got together, she had 2 children, Gavin and Emma. And I had 3, Jaden, Tripp, and Harper. And then we just recently had a baby, and his name is Blake. And so he's 10 months old right now. So so we got our hands full over here. It's quite an adventure on a day-to-day basis, but we love it. You know, we love it. We call it the controlled chaos, and so we enjoyed what we do and just raising a family and having kids out here. Couldn't ask for a better place to raise a family and have kids. French Settlement, Louisiana is a great place to live. It's God's country. It's one of those no stoplight type towns, real small town. Our high school, which doesn't have a football team. So during basketball season, everybody's at the gym watching the basketball team play. And so it's one of those places, and I couldn't ask to live in a better place. So I love being a husband. I love being a father. I do my best to lead my home in a good Christian manner. I'm not always perfect, fall sometimes and don't get some things right, but I do my best to try and lead by example and try to just be an example of what Christ is inside my home to my wife and kids, and just do what I have to do to lead them in the right direction. Our lives are pretty busy with all the activities that we got going on, with as many kids as we have, and we have our things that we like to do as well. But I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love running kids back and forth to practice, picking up kids from daycare, getting them here, getting them there, after school activities, things like that. Just amazing. We attend church pretty regularly over here. Very actively involved in church. Lead a group, a small men's group, and just love pouring into people, man, and helping them out. I get a lot out of that myself. I've learned a lot through helping other people. So it's kind of a double-edged sword when you help somebody, in a manner where you're helping them with their faith and everything. A lot of times you learn some things that way too. And so that's happened a lot in my life. But I wasn't always a follower of Jesus. It was something that has kind of recently taken root in my life. And I've always believed in God. Didn't necessarily always follow God. And so it happened, I think when I was about 32, my dad, who was dying of cancer, he found Jesus. He gave his life to the Lord, and was, walking through that. And at the very end of his life, he told me, he said, "Nolan, you need to find God. You need to develop a relationship with Jesus. You need to give your life to Christ. You need to be saved." And I'd like to tell you that, as soon as he said that, I jumped right into it, and everything's sunshine and rainbows. But the truth is that it took a long time, for me to actually grasp it and understand what actually making Jesus your Lord and your Savior was really all about. And I played around with it. We went to church every Sunday and checked the box, and I just tried to be a good person. And, that's basically all it was. But It wasn't until about 2020 that things really got serious for me. All through my life, I've had people in my life that they were great examples of what a follower of Christ should be, and what it meant to be a Christian. And, so it's always been there for me to take root of, and I just kind of never really took it serious. I think out of all the people that I know, my mom is probably the greatest example of Christ. She's always helping somebody. She's always feeding the hungry, giving to the poor, taking care of those that can't take care of themselves. And I don't think I've ever told her that, and so, she's been a great example in my life, whether she's doing that intentionally or not. That is what it is. I've had several men that I've worked with, that have spoken into my life. There was one time where I was going to lead a Bible study at work, and I had everything, all together, and had tables and chairs set up in a shop and everything, and invited all kind of people. And it came down to the lunch break, and one man showed up, and I was just so aggravated or whatever. And he sat down with me, and he pulled a little handheld Bible out of his back pocket, and he taught me more about Jesus in 15 minutes than I'd ever known in my entire life. And so it's just little moments like that have happened. It's kind of chipped away and built me up to kind of where I'm at now. But 2020 was the real awakening for me. I ended up getting COVID real bad, and ended up having to be hospitalized at Baton Rouge General in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Thank God that's where I went, because he was all over that place and really involved in this whole ordeal. End up at Baton Rouge General in the emergency room, and within 10 minutes after being assigned a room, because I had to stay overnight, within 10 minutes of being there, I got shipped to COVID ICU. Oxygen levels are plummeting, and it's a pretty dire situation. And so they get me in COVID ICU, and they put me on a breathing machine, on like a CPAP type machine. And so, and through all that, I really wasn't aware of how serious it was. I mean, all I really wanted to do was watch the American League Championship Series, because I was hoping the Astros would get beat, because I'm a Rangers fan, if you hadn't noticed that. But I was paying attention to that, and then every morning the pulmonologist would come in, Dr. Ryan Richard, and he would come in and he would tell me, he's like, man, look, if you don't get to this level, or if the levels go to a certain point, I'm not exactly sure what he would say, but if it continues to get worse, we're going to have to intubate. And day after day after day, he would come in and say that. Well, then on the time where it was time to intubate, he came in and said, hey man, it's time, we're going to have to intubate. And I finally just looked at him and I said, Doc, I don't know what intubate means. I said, can you tell me what that means in English? And he looked at me in my eyes and he said, man, we're going to have to put you on the ventilator. And at that time, all I had known was that if you went on the ventilator, that was pretty much a death sentence. At that time, people were dying left and right from the ventilator. I mean, they were running out of ventilators. There were so many people on them. And so it hit me right there. I just overcome with fear and just sorrow and sadness. And I thought to myself, I'm engaged to be married. I've got kids, my mom, my brother, and I'm not going to be able to call any of them and tell them that I love them one last time, because at that point, there were no visitors. You were in there by yourself. There was no communication, and my phone had just died. And so here I am, about to just take the deep dive, and I can't tell anybody I love them, and that was pretty scary. And it was like God snapped his fingers at me. And right then and there, I looked up and I said, Jesus, I believe in you. You're the Lord of my life. But I need you right now. And I said, God, I got to have you, because I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to go. And I guess that was kind of my rock bottom. It's like, here I am knocking on death's door. And I started questioning whether or not I was saved or not. And I knew who Jesus was. I believed in Jesus, and I just never confessed it. So right then and there, I confessed it. And then I looked up at the doctor and I said, hey, and I was very confident about this. I said, look, I know I'm going to have a ton of people just beating down the doors of heaven with prayers on my behalf. And I told him, you do your job. I'm going to fight my butt off, and I'm going to come through this. I've got kids that need their dad. I've got a woman that I cannot wait to walk down the aisle in January. And so if you do your job, I'm going to do mine, and we'll come through this. And he looked at me and he said, okay, I got you. And he gave me a fist bump. And man, I don't know if he'll ever do that again, because about 10 minutes later, when they went to disconnect the CPAP machine I was on and attempt to put me on the ventilator, my heart stopped and I completely flatlined. They had to jump on top of me and resuscitate me. And I'll never forget, I was able to look up. I could see Blake, which was the nurse that was resuscitating me. I could see him on top of me, pumping on my chest. And let me tell you, that is the most painful thing in the world. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't say anything, but I could see him. And it was like I was looking through pickets on a fence, and I could see him just pumping on my chest. And I could hear somebody right here over my shoulder saying, hey, if you got to, just break his chest. And I'm on the inside in excruciating pain going, no, I'm okay. Look, I'm going to be all right. And but they couldn't hear me, so they get me back, and they're trying to ventilate me again. And for the second time, my heart stops. And so there they are, back going through the same process. And that was it took a long time for them to get me stable enough to where they could actually. So my heart stops twice. They get me back twice. They finally get me ventilated, and then it's a 19-day up and down, close to kidney failure. I mean, just so many things were happening. But I remember I would have these very vivid dreams. And in every one of these dreams, I was always surrounded by homelessness for whatever reason. I was always homeless. I was always scared. I always felt like somebody was trying to kill me. And but they never could. They never could kill me. And so I escaped death so many times in my dreams. And there was this one dream that I was having where I saw my dad. And just like he was standing right next to me. And I looked over at him, and he looked at me, and he looked me square in my eyes, and he said, hey, you're going to be okay. It's not your time. It's not your time. And I turned away because my brother in my dream, my brother was sitting right next to me. And I looked at him, and then I looked back at my dad. My dad was gone. So after that happened, I never was scared again in any of my dreams. And I really believe that's when the comeback started happening, and I was able to pull through. So, I had to learn how to walk and talk again. I had to learn how to do everything, how to feed myself, how to dress myself. So it was a pretty grueling process. But Blake, the guy that was resuscitating me and saved my life 2 times, he would come in my room and check on me in ICU every if not every day, every other day, but it was pretty often. That whole team at BRG, they were amazing, man. And I'm so grateful for everyone that was there. It's such a God story and how everybody has lined up. But Blake would come in and check on me, man. I remember one time I looked him in his eye and I said, hey, I gave my life to Christ right before I went out on the ventilator. I said, and because you saved my life, I vow to spread the gospel. So, and I've always been heavily involved with coaching and adolescents and stuff like that. So I told him, I said, there's going to be thousands of kids that hear the gospel of Jesus Christ because you saved my life. And I made that promise that day. And ever since that day, it's kind of, that's where this has taken root. And that's where this podcast has kind of grown from. There's been a lot of prayers and just asking God, what do you want me to do? What route do you want me to go? And I've had some speaking engagements, and I've talked to some kids, and it's kind of been, a little bit here and there. But I think right now, all the things that God has lined up for me and where I've been and the experiences that I've had since the COVID, I think it's lined me up to this. And so this is where I'm at. And this is, I think this is what's going to happen. So I'm at the age now where I've coached sports longer than I've played. I'm actually getting out of coaching and starting to just kind of be a dad on the sidelines. But I've always been involved with sports. I've always played football and baseball. I didn't play a whole lot of football, but I did play baseball for a good while, various different levels, and nothing too important. I mean, I was basically a rec league player, and we joined a men's league out here that had a hardball league, and jumped into that and played in that with it for about 8 years. But I've always just been around the games, and then I started getting into coaching when I turned 18, and I've coached for a long time. I've coached a lot of kids, and the one thing that really changed the way I coached, that really made a significant impact, was when a pastor that I knew asked me. He said, "How much do you talk about Jesus whenever you're coaching?" I really didn't. I didn't talk about Jesus any. I separated baseball and Jesus, and I didn't think that there was a place, and he said, "Why don't you try doing that?" And so I started doing it, and it took a second to feel comfortable doing it, but then I started really doing it, started pouring in some Jesus into our practices and our team talks and things like that. And that's when things really started to turn. That's when I was able to really, grab the hearts of some of the kids that I was coaching, and really help them out with where they were in life, and not only on the field, but also off the field. And so, it was that right there that inspired kind of the direction that I think I'm going now, combined with the things that have happened in my life. And I think everything's just kind of put us on this trajectory. And I just, there's so many stories of athletes out there who are unashamed, just they're actually living out Romans 1:16, and it's just being unashamed of the gospel, for it's the power of God for salvation to everyone. And not being ashamed of being a follower of Jesus Christ on and off the field. And so we're looking for those athletes, and we're going to interview them, and we're going to talk to them. We're going to dig in and find out, what they're all about. What do they do? What's their story, their testimonies, where are their pain points, and how do they handle that? And, the everyday struggles that you go through when you're an athlete, whether you be a middle school athlete or all the way up to a pro athlete. We want to talk to all of them and see, how they face the daily challenges that come along with being an athlete, but also being a Christian at the same time. And share those stories. That way the other millions of athletes out there can learn from these things and maybe put some of those tools in their toolbox to help them. And we want to advance the kingdom, guys. That's all I really want to accomplish here, just to glorify God, advance the kingdom, spread the gospel, and just, let everybody know that it's okay to be just an unashamed Christian on the field, on the court, wherever you're at, wherever you're playing. And so that's the heart of this whole thing. And, I pray that, everything's going to work out, because I believe that Romans 8:28, it says everything works out for the good for those who love God and are called to his purpose. And I love God, and I feel like I am called to his purpose. And so I got to believe that this is going to work out and do exactly what I think it's going to do. And so I can't wait to get it rolling. I'm very excited about it. I've put a lot of prayer into this, and I'm just looking forward to what's going to happen. I'm ready for the journey. Hey, so be sure to like, follow, share the podcast. That way you can get the notifications of the next one that comes on. We'll be trying to do one bi-weekly and then move into a weekly deal as we grow. So like, follow, share. Thanks for hanging out, and we look forward to seeing you again. God bless.